Welcome back to the garage. So today we've got something different in the garage. BMW 3 Series here, and wasn't actually going to be a project car at all. This is actually supposed to be my mom's new like daily driver. You know, want to get her something nicer, luxury car, all that kind of stuff. And so we found this for a decent price, picked it up. A few days later, thing won't start. Wouldn't you know it? So after some messing around with it, found out first thing was the battery was kind of dead. I've been like detailing the interior, so I had the doors open and stuff. So apparently I ran down the battery, and so we got that charged up. That was good to go. And by the way, there's some weird stuff when you run out of the battery I did not know about. Wipers started going off randomly. Lights were flashing on and off in the dash. It's like it was possessed. But anyway, so it still wouldn't start. And did some looking around online. Turned out to diagnose it, we had to take off like all the cowl panel stuff goes like up in here where the cabin air filter stuff goes and all that. And that gets you access to this here, which is like a big junction box of a bunch of wires that goes a little bit of everywhere. And this wire back here in the back, there's like a big white wire that is actually the starter trigger wire. So we started testing that. It turned out it did seem like it was getting power. So unhooked this connector, and I actually ran like a jumper just to like 100%, like it's getting power. Is it gonna turn the starter over? And so you have a little, like the little jump part here, which is like the positive for the battery. So I hooked up for a jumper from here to there, a little start button. It hit the button, and like you could hear it click down there, but it wouldn't move. So what I did, you know, old school, I got like the pry bar, went through the intake manifold, hit it with a hammer just to get like, you know, jar that starter, see if I could get the thing to start. And it would kind of, but it wouldn't actually turn more than just a little bit of a turn. And so yeah, I'm pretty convinced it's a starter. I'm really hoping. And so we got a starter. We're gonna try and put it in there. When you're doing a starter on one of these things, you can't really get to it from the bottom because of the way the engine's canted over like this. So basically, you end up having to pull back the intake manifold and working through your little hole here. The other thing, if you do have one of these and you are going to change a starter, one of the bolts comes in back from the back here, and this hose is like a PCV hose, and it's going to break pretty much from what I can tell, because I barely even touched this hose and it broke. So kind of plan on, if you're going to do this, grab this PCV hose. We had one that just came in, but I didn't have one when I first did it, so at first it seemed like it was going to be a bigger deal than it was. So we got the Bosch starter, which is supposed to be like the factory replacement for it, so that should be good. It's like a reman unit, whatever. It should work. The other thing that I didn't think about when we first got it was, it turns out you're supposed to get new bolts for these, because these are like aluminum bolts, and after the one use, you're supposed to actually change them out. So that first day when I went to pull it apart, I had the starter, didn't have these bolts, so that kind of held me up. So just keep that in mind if you do just starter on one of these things. So one pointer I found particularly helpful that I've seen somewhere is, so it comes with these like the Torx bolts, right? And yeah, you got the sockets and everything to use them, but on the one on the back, especially the one that kind of comes in this way, it's super hard to get a socket on there with any room to actually use it with something. So yeah, an 11 millimeter or 7/16 wrench actually fits right on that head like perfect. So I'm gonna use like a ratchet wrench to kind of get it down some of the way, and I have a regular box end wrench as well that I'm gonna use, and it just has to be 12 point. That's like the key. Another quick tip, being that these are remanned, what I just found out is the threads sometimes get a little beat up, probably because they like bead blast this part or something to clean everything up. So what I did, I ran a tap through here. I just made sure those threads were nice, because I was having trouble getting the bolt to start when it was down in there, but now it just goes in like butter. So something to keep in mind. that starter in there. We got the intake manifold all back on there. I changed the little O-rings in there, like the little gaskets for the intake manifold. Other thing we're gonna do, kind of while we're in, we're just gonna do a little bit of maintenance too. I pulled out this filter, and it's not like, oh my God, it's really bad, but it's dirty. And so we're gonna toss a new one of those in there. That way we shouldn't have to worry about that later. We're also gonna do some plugs here in a minute too. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting pretty close to see if this thing is gonna fire off. Got the engine pretty much back together. Now we're gonna go ahead and throw in some new spark plugs while we're in here before we try to give it a start. Kind of an interesting design on these. I hadn't actually run into this before. If I remember right, you basically flip open the connector here, and that kind of ejects out the wiring. And then to get it out, take yourself a little pry bar, and it just kind of pulls out like that. I'd never really seen that before. It's back together except for like the covers and stuff. So before we put all that on, let's see if this thing starts. Cross some fingers. Here we go. It's gonna start. We got it all back together, as you can see. It runs, starts up nice. Here, let's do it real quick. Yep. Need the keys to start it. Watch it not start this time because we got the camera on. So fire it right up. The only thing though is now we have these lights on the dash. There's these airbag lights. The brake light goes out when you put off the e-brake, so there's no problem there. But it's these airbag lights that are kind of troublesome, the airbag and the seatbelt. And they don't go out, like I don't know, I'm sitting here without a seatbelt on right now, but they don't go out if you have your seatbelt on or anything. So we have a affordable like code reader that's supposed to do all the BMW specific stuff. So we'll see how that goes. See if I can't get this turned off on, you know, affordable budget without taking it to the dealership. I don't know. Other than that, just got to finish cleaning it up, do a quick oil change on it, and then it's going to be ready for it to be the daily driver that it was supposed to be, hopefully. And so, yeah, it starts now and everything, and it seems like, I think what happened, I had the battery tested and everything when we were first trying to hunt down this problem, and I took the battery over to the parts store to have it tested and everything and charged because it was kind of dead when I pulled it out. But when they gave it back to me, they said they charged it and then it tested good. Well, it seems like maybe that was incorrect because we changed the starter, right? Because I kind of diagnosed it down to that because if I put power directly to the starter, it wasn't doing anything. It would just kind of click and barely turn. So I thought maybe it was the starter that had a problem because after I hit it, it's when it barely turned. So got that starter all replaced. We waited for those bolts and that whole thing, right? And put it all back together, hooked the battery back up, and the thing wouldn't start. It would just kept flickering, and it was doing that stuff that it was doing before we took the battery out with all the lights going crazy, and it started to turn on the wipers too out of nowhere. So I kind of look it up, like what happens when these batteries die and what, you know, people see if there's a video, and there was a video of one doing it, and it was doing exactly what this thing was doing. So I pulled the battery back out and decided, you know what, we're just going to change the battery, because if they charged it and it said it was good, then obviously there's something internally wrong with the battery. So put the new battery in, and that's when it actually started acting right again, except for those lights that are on the dash, but we'll figure that out. But so if you have a problem with this thing just doing all kinds of weird stuff, for sure check out the battery. And if you have someone test it, maybe I guess watch them test it, because I think maybe that's kind of where I ended up doing some extra work here. We're going to be doing an oil change on this thing too, and one of the things that weirds me out about this thing is there's actually no dipstick on it anywhere. And so I looked it up to see like how you're supposed to check the level of the oil, and basically there's a sensor that tells the computer if it's too low or not, and the only way to actually measure what's in it is to drain it out and then measure what's in it. That just seems weird to me, but we're just going to roll with it. We looked it up. Looks like this thing takes about 6.5 quarts of 530. So that's what we got. We got the BMW oil filter and everything. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing up in the air and get the oil changed. Oil's back in it, started it back up. No warning lights, which seems like a weird way to check to see if you have oil in it, but here we are with a newer BMW doing that. Kind of drop it down, finish buffing the roof. Then basically all we gotta do is ceramic coat it and get it off to its new owner. So I realized I forgot to tell you exactly what that airbag and seatbelt light was that was left on this thing. So basically what it was is there's a little connector that goes onto the positive terminal. And there's like a 2-wire little wire that comes off, and if you have one of these things and you have the battery out, you can see it right there. It's right there by the positive side. And basically when I was putting the battery in, I must have accidentally pulled that connector out. And so it just wasn't connected, and was setting a code for the actual, I forget what they call it, but it's like the little safety thing on the positive terminal on these things. And so because it wasn't hooked up, it didn't see the right like resistance or whatever, set the code. So got that hooked back up, cleared the code on it, and luckily the lights are all out. It's all good to go. So if you do need a code reader on one of these and you have codes like that you're trying to read, go on Amazon, and that's what I looked, and I think it was like $180, which is kind of a lot, but not really too bad compared to what they used to be, I think. So yeah, Amazon, look up like BMW code reader, and you can find yourself one so that way you can check these kind of things and get the codes and figure them out. So yeah, definitely getting a lot better. This is like before being waxed, or not waxed, but buffed. You can see all these surface scratches, and then back here, I've already done. So yeah, definitely getting better, and yeah, big difference, huh? Look at that. We got car looking pretty good back here. Got it all buffed out, got it kind of cleaned up, and we're gonna try to learn something new now. First time I've ever tried to do like a ceramic coating, and so that's what we're gonna try and do. We got the let's see, Car Pro C Quartz 3.0 ceramic paint protection stuff. Basically, just gonna kind of follow the instructions and hope I don't mess it up too bad. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Well, there it is, all ceramic coated, it's buffed, it's cleaned, it's detailed, and it's all ready to go to its new owner. So as far as buying a BMW, it has cost a little bit more than I expected it to. It seems like, I mean, maybe you could have bought one that didn't have a weird problem right away, where I think the battery went dead and we kind of ended up having to buy some extra stuff because of that. So there's that, but just overall, it seems like maybe it would have been more cost effective to go with like a Lexus or an Infiniti to get the same kind of a car, but it does drive really good. And you know, if you wanted that look, that's a BMW, right? So next time we're gonna have some more projects. We're gonna be getting back to the muscle cars, getting back to some projects, and I got a big one coming up for you here in a few. So make sure to stay with us, subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. I like hearing from you, and we'll see you next time on Tack It Garage.